Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jeff Fagan. I'm a filmmaker, DP, and content creator based in South Florida. Now, normally on my other channel, I talk a lot about the methods of filmmaking, techniques, gear, but on this channel, I am a huge filmmaking nerd. I love sci-fi, specifically Star Trek. I've been a huge fan since pretty much I was born. Watched the shows in the 90s, even caught Voyager and Deep Space Nine on TV, watched reruns of the original series in Next Gen. Picard's probably my favorite. And watched Enterprise, the reboot J.J. Abrams movies, and even the newer shows like Star Trek Discovery, Strange New Worlds, the Picard, especially Picard Season 3. I was such a huge Picard Season 3 fanboy. I bought pretty much a lot of the merchandise. I got the Blu-ray special edition, I got the soundtrack on vinyl right here, and I did what I don't normally do because I'm typically spending all my money on filmmaking gear, is I bought this, which is the Titan A from Fan Home. I don't really buy these too much, although I have a lot of Star Trek ships sitting on my display case in my room, just because I've been a fan for years and I've had those ships for years. But needless to say, this is where I'm getting at. I've been a huge Star Trek fan for many years, and when I was younger, I had a theory when watching Enterprise. And as I've been watching the newer Star Trek shows, and there's been deviation from what we originally saw in the original shows, like the original series, Next Generation, there was a lot of stuff that a lot of fans, frankly, are upset that may not really be canon, or at least to them are not canon. And I had this idea kicking up. And then Star Trek Picard Season 3 came out, and The Coda, which is a Star Trek book series, came out that further fueled my theory of something that Star Trek itself, the franchise, the guys who run it, like Alex Kurtzman, that if implemented could literally tie the entire Star Trek universe together in maybe one movie or miniseries that loops a bunch of different crews and explains why there's deviations in canon, like all of a sudden Spock having a stepsister, things that happened in Season 2 of Discovery, Strange New Worlds, some stuff that happened in Picard Season 1 and 2. There's a lot that can be done to tie all of Star Trek together. So in this video, I want to discuss my theory and also hear from you what your thoughts are. But Star Trek fandom has been very divided since 2017 when Star Trek Discovery was released, and there were a lot of changes made, and I was excited when it first came out because I looked at it as Star Trek getting modernized. But as the series went on, even me, as although a huge Star Trek fan, I'm definitely more casual than some of the very hardcore fans that see every minute detail. From the arrival of Spock's long-lost sister in Discovery to a whole new Starfleet tech that seems way out of its time, if Star Trek First Contact changed the timeline, what if this could actually fix modern canon? So today, we'll talk about my theory that First Contact's time travel plot created a subtle shift in the timeline, resulting in the creation of Star Trek Enterprise events that could even explain the most recent storylines and changes in Discovery and beyond. And if Star Trek decides to run with this theory, we could see a new era that connects everything and unites the crews like never before. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the conversation. Without further ado, let's beam into this. All right, let's start with a quick recap of Star Trek First Contact. In the movie, the Borg traveled to Earth's past, specifically the year 2063, to prevent humanity's first warp flight by Dr. Zefram Cochrane. In this moment that would lead to Earth's first contact with the Vulcans and the beginning of the United Federation of Planets, Captain Picard and the crew of the USS Enterprise E follow the Borg back in time to stop them, managing to restore Cochrane's flight and securing Earth's future in the process. So what does this mean for the Star Trek timeline? Well, here's the thing about Star Trek and time travel. It's rarely consequence-free. We've seen episodes where even small changes in the past create massive ripples in the future. But unlike other Star Trek stories, the timeline wasn't reset after First Contact. The crew simply prevented disaster, so they left the past technically intact. Or did they? Now, let's look at Star Trek Enterprise, specifically the episode Regeneration. In this episode, a team of scientists discover Borg drones in the Arctic. And these aren't just any Borg drones. These are the drones that are remnants of the events of First Contact. After the movie's climax, it's strongly implied that some Borg were left stranded on Earth. They accidentally awakened in Enterprise, leading to Archer and the crew facing the Borg before they technically should have. So here's my theory that First Contact permanently altered Enterprise's timeline. The Borg were now part of humanity's history, and while Earth may not have known who they were, this encounter still happened in the 22nd century, decades before the events of Star Trek The Next Generation. This sets up a butterfly effect, where the early Federation and Earth's Starfleet are subtly altered. It also explains how a pre-Kirk Starfleet had the experience with the Borg, something that was originally never part of canon. But here's where things get interesting. If the events in First Contact permanently altered the timeline to create Enterprise, then what if the new timeline also affects other Star Trek series, specifically modern shows? Let's look at Discovery, for example. From the spore drive to Michael Burnham, Spock's adopted sister, Discovery introduced new elements that weren't previously part of Star Trek canon. But if we view Discovery as part of this altered timeline, one that branched from First Contact, then suddenly there's a reason for these elements to exist without contradicting the original timeline. This timeline would have room for technological leaps like the spore drive, and even family histories like Michael Burnham. It's as if this new timeline can open up a sandbox for modern Star Trek to use. Think about it. This timeline shift provides a foundation for shows like Discovery and Picard to explore new territory without erasing classic canon. We're not throwing away the past, we're building on it in a different way. I know that a lot of fans feel disconnected from these new Star Trek stories. They feel that Discovery and other recent shows stray too far from what Star Trek used to be. But if Star Trek canon acknowledged this timeline split, it could bridge that gap. Instead of dismissing these new series as inconsistent, we could see them as part of an alternate but connected history, a history that was set in motion by First Contact. By validating this theory, Star Trek could keep classic fans happy by preserving the original timeline as we knew it, while allowing for new stories in this adjusted universe. Imagine Star Trek officially recognizing this change. It would make every series feel like a piece of one larger puzzle, a single shared multiverse of Star Trek. Now, here's where things get really ambitious. Imagine if the crews from all the various Star Trek shows, Enterprise, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Discovery, Strange New Worlds, etc. Picture a crossover event, a movies, or maybe a mini-series, where they all come together to solve the root cause of what changed the timeline, tracing it all back to the events of First Contact. Think about it. We'd get to see characters from all these beloved series united, confronting a timeline anomaly that affects all of them. And in the process, we'd see incredible fan-favorite interactions and some incredible storytelling potential, resolving years of canon debates. It could be a story where we see crews of multiple ships, Enterprise, Discovery, Voyager, working together to solve a mystery like the ultimate Star Trek movie fans have been waiting for. I look at it as something like Avengers Infinity War. There wasn't necessarily a main character other than maybe Tony Stark. For the most part in that movie, the characters were completely split up dealing with different issues in different locations. Not only would this be a love letter to fans, but it would open the doors for new storytelling in Star Trek. Balancing nostalgia with the thrill of modern storytelling. This could be the key to keeping Star Trek fresh while respecting its roots. In the beginning of the video, I discussed how I bought all this Star Trek merchandise, and I think that's one thing that I probably see has been missing from Star Trek. I don't think the types of fans that were buying this kind of merchandise have been buying a lot of the newer series merchandise like Star Trek Discovery. And you could see this in Eagle Moss closing. Now Fan Home has this new version of the Star Trek ships collection that I have right here. And as really cool as this is, even someone like me, I have never purchased in my adult years any kind of Star Trek ship, but I was such a fan of Star Trek Picard Season 3. This means a lot to me. Just the nostalgia of seeing this ship, the Titan A, it brings me back. And I think that's something that's missing in Star Trek. I think because of the divide with the fans, you see a lot of them not spending money on merchandise, which is part of a really big part of the business side of Star Trek. I think if Paramount, Alex Kurtzman were able to pull this all together, you'd see a lot of Star Trek fans coming back and uniting as one, just fans of Star Trek. So there you have it. That is my theory on how Star Trek First Contact reshaped the timeline, leading to Enterprise's Borg encounter, Discovery's modern elements, and some of the subtle changes in Star Trek Picard. It could be the perfect way to satisfy longtime fans of the series while paving the way to create new ones. Now, I want to know what you think. Do you think that First Contact could be the timeline split we've never noticed? And would you like to see Star Trek use this theory to bring together classic and modern canon? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you want to see more content like this. My name's Jeff Fagan. Thank you for joining me in today's video, and I will catch you in the next one.